Note that Chairman Schlosser is absent tonight. And on that, take action on the minutes. Everybody get a chance to review the minutes. Any changes? Take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ex parte communications. Yes.
Item 5.
Public comments. Anything? Anybody wish to comment on anything that's not on the agenda tonight? Okay. Item 6. Ex parte communications. None. No old business. On to new business. I will open the public hearing on case 135000002. Yep.
Mike. Check mic. Okay, get closer.
We have two preliminary flats tonight, volunteer phases 1 and 2. Phase 1 is located here in Saraville, Portland. Phase 2 is located south of phase 1. Proposed for these subdivisions are court homes, detached single-family court homes. That is the intended development for this area for the Phase 1, 14.4 acres, 120 units. Phase 2, 18.5 acres, 111 units.
And this is the development plan for both phases. The basic design is a 6-pack design. There are also some pods with 10 units in there. And this is the typical design, 6 lots on a motor court, which then provides access to the private streets here. For the lots, the garages, well, actually all of the lots, their garages access the motor court. For the lots, their front entries also access the motor court. 2 lots, the ones fronting the private street, those houses will have porches and entries facing a private street. The intent to provide, as you go down a street, the streetscape will present to you fronts of houses and not necessarily garage doors. All of the garages will be accessed via the motor court. The way the yards are designed, they will go across lot lines. Use and benefit easements will be established. The colors on the diagram show that for this house, their private yard is all of that area there. The same for this house and this one as well. It provides for a larger private space for each home to allow them to use the adjoining neighbor's property. Phase 1 will have about 3.66 acres of open space. Phase 2 will have about 7.5. In Phase 1, they will have a pool amenity located in the central open space area here. And in Phase 2, they'll be putting in a trail system connect to existing trails within Canyon Trails. All streets within the subdivisions, they will be private, owned and maintained by the HOA. The HOA will also maintain all of the front yards fronting the private streets, these areas here, as well as those yards fronting the motor court, to provide for a consistent maintenance throughout the subdivisions. Staff has reviewed both subdivisions. We do find them consistent with the Canyon Trails PAD, the city's subdivision regulations. We are recommending approval subject to the stipulations in the staff reports. With that, Mr. Chairman, my presentation is concluded. The applicant and his development team is here as well to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Steve? Commissioner Short?
I noticed that one of the stipulations called for the replacement of plants that died in the areas that the HOA was responsible for within 30 days. And I'm absolutely all for a stipulation that requires timely replacement of plants. But I wondered if in this area where there are some seasons that if you replace the plant, it might not survive and might have to be replaced again, was taken into consideration, or if there's a way to require timely replacement but still time it in those times that we kind of traditionally consider planting times or optimal times for plants to actually live when they're replaced.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, that is a good question. That thought did not come into play with drafting a stipulation. I do know that the builders do build all year and they are installing landscaping all year, but you're right, it does stress during the summer months, the heat, or sometimes the colder months. 30 days was just the time frame pick that allowed the quick replacement, that it didn't languish too long without having the plantings available.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Member Short, it is certainly our intent to have it replaced as quickly as possible to maintain continuity and appearance of the development. Obviously, if it was in the dead of winter or the extreme heat of summer, if the HOAs basically said that to us, we typically would work with the HOA and just kind of make sure we hold their feet to the fire, though, but within a reasonable period of time. And that's something we can try to take a look at when the CC&Rs are brought with the final plat.
Thank you. I appreciate that common sense.
I agree with Commissioner Short, but I would like to see a number there, not the words timely fashion.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? I have a question about traffic and Saraville. Right now, since I think it's a school that they're building, opened up, northbound on Saraville has been pretty poor, and I noticed there's a stipulation where the developer would contribute to a light. I'm wondering if there's any city plans to expand that road, or what's your anticipated impact of this development on that already burdened road?
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, the payment for the traffic signal, that's for that existing traffic signal there that they'll be asked to participate in. I know our engineering staff did review this application. The roadway as existing was going to be acceptable for this development without any sort of improvements to Saraville other than typical improvements that they would be required for their side. But I don't not heard of any plans that they were going to expand Saraville beyond what it is existing.
there any city plans to take a look at that? Or if there aren't, I would encourage the city to take a look at Saraville, because it's almost become unusable in the morning, especially during the school year. So.
And Mr. Chairman, I think that may be partially a function of an extreme amount of traffic that's diverted there now because of the freeway restrictions and the fact that the TI at 303 and I-10 isn't completed. There'll probably be some relief from that once that project is done, but with the addition of this traffic, it will build back up. I know there are plans in the CIP, and I'm not sure which upcoming year, to make improvements to Saraville South from this point because of the half-street situation that exists there. But I'm not aware of any other improvements north other than, I believe there's a frontage road that's going to end up getting connected in there as part of the TI project. That's not there yet. So it's not done. There's more to come.
Well, it was actually a very good road, and for some reason, the last 6 weeks or so, when they started construction on a new school up there, it became unusable. So just a suggestion from someone who used to use the road regularly and now is finding alternative ways around it.
Okay, we'll pass it along and make sure the traffic engineering's aware of it.
And
Mr.
with that,
Mr. Chairman, can I
yes.
ask a question? Steve, on Phase 2, how far away are the closest houses to Route 10? And has any consideration been given to noise levels?
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, there was about 100 feet, give or take, that was that space there, that buffer area. And the applicant did provide a noise study with these subdivisions, and it took into account that ADOT would be putting in a sound wall. The applicant also, because of the sound study, will be constructing a taller wall along those north lots, I think 9 feet tall, to provide extra protection from the noise for those lots. So, yes, they did have a sound study, and they did incorporate some of those recommendations.
I was also curious because there's wording in here about you have to notify folks about Luke, and you have to notify them about Goodyear, but they don't have to notify them about their proximity to Route 10. Is that standard operating procedure, or do they consider it the fact that they can see Route 10 from there, they should be able to figure it out, or what is the reasoning behind that?
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, that was the reasoning, that it was such a visible
It's so
component
obvious.
of the landscape, yes, where Luke and the airport may be a little further away.
And I
Thank-
believe it's state law that if you're in a noise zone or accident potential zone, that you have to notify those folks who are buying homes in those areas. I think that's
But
the
they
case.
don't have to for the highways, right?
Right.
Chairman Peters, Commissioner Hamilton's right that we have included that stipulation on other plats, especially where they may be close to it, but not close enough to see it.
Okay.
But I think Steve's explanation was, in this instance, it's fairly obvious that it's there, and so that's the reason why the stipulation was not included.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Steve, I have a question. I applaud the use of what looks to me like alternative housing typologies. This is a little different, and I was just curious, was that the developer's choice, or did the planning department suggest that for this area?
We did it. No, I'm kidding.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, the PAD does designate this spot for court homes. This type of development was initiated by the developer KV Homes. So it seems like a new product that they are starting here in the valley.
Okay, and I understand that the applicant would like to make a few words, and I failed to do housekeeping. If you have any comments to make for the commission, please fill out the comment card and state your name and address for the record when you start your presentation. Do we have an applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I think the applicant's okay unless you have
Oh.
Okay,
specific
unless there's
questions.
questions, are there questions for the applicant?
Let them know that you're okay with the stipulations.
I don't have any. With that, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve application 13500000002 as proposed.
I did hear comments earlier about maybe inserting a number of days on the landscaping. Is that something that you want to pursue? Is that something we want to include as a commission, or?
I personally like it the way it is, with the 30 days. I think there needs to be a number. So I'm fine with 30 days, and if they can work out, you know, even paying your mortgage, they give you a grace period. So.
So stipulation as written. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
It is.
On to case, oh, we got to move the second one.
Yeah.
Will I open a public hearing on this as well, or?
Mr. Chairman, for preliminary plats, a public hearing is not required, and you can just open it for discussion.
Okay, I'm going to open case 13500000001 for public discussion. And with that, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion we approve case number 13-500-00001 with stated stipulations.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
For some reason, phase one got-
On to the next case, 13350000001, special use permit for the River of Life Evangelical Lutheran Church. Mr. Billingsley, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Before you this evening is a special use permit. It's being requested for the River of Life Evangelical Lutheran Church to allow a church use in approximately 1,158 square feet in Building 1, which is Suite 107, located at 3690 South Estrella Parkway in the Estrella Crossing Business Park Commercial Center. I've placed an aerial photo up for your review. And just to note some of the existing and proposed land uses surrounding the subject property to the north, you can see there's some undeveloped farmland which is zoned PAD. It's part of the Sun DS Farms PAD. And it contemplates business park uses along the Estrella Parkway frontage and Elwood Drive frontage. And Elwood is right here. So Estrella Parkway is here. To the south of the subject property, you can see there's some undeveloped commercial, and there's several other commercial and light industrial uses south of West Illini Street, which Illini Street is right here. So south of that, you have Wilhelm Automotive and Repair and the car wash there. To the east, you can see M Cement Materials, the recycling facility, just east of Estrella Parkway. And also there is a vacant commercial parcel within the Wood Corporate Center PAD and the Cincinnati Reds Development Complex to the northeast there that you can see. And finally, to the west, we have undeveloped commercial and industrial lots within the Estrella Crossing Business Park. So the zoning of this particular property is PAD, Planned Area Development, for the Estrella Crossing Business Park. This was approved and established in 2005. There are currently 3 shops buildings in this area. There's one here, and one here. Subject property right here. Just kind of zooming in so you can see some of the adjacent businesses there. So there's quite a bit of vehicular access to the parcel from Estrella Parkway, from Elwood Drive, and from West Illini Street. All of the internal circulation plan through the site has already been developed, and cross-access easements are in place for the commercial center. Additionally, the commercial center has cross-access and parking agreements for all of the lots in the project. So this exhibit shows the individual suite, and it shows the seating plan that's being provided by the church. The church is proposing regular worship hours every Sunday morning between 8:30 and 10:30 a.m. Additionally, they will have an education service hour between 10:30 and 11 a.m. each Sunday. The church will also meet occasionally throughout the year from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. for certain services. So a total of 12 parking spaces are required by the zoning ordinance for the church, for a church of this size. The existing commercial center has already been developed with 273 parking spaces. So with this relatively minor change from retail to church, the required parking for the commercial center should not be impacted. Regarding the citizen review process, due to the lack of residences in the vicinity, staff did provide an alternative citizen review process, and a written notice was sent to all property owners within 500 feet of the subject property. And staff did receive one phone call from the owner of an adjacent vacant lot. The caller expressed opposition due to the potential restrictions on the sale of alcohol, which may potentially impact the property in the future. However, no formal complaint or objection was submitted in writing to staff thus far. And I believe the provision that the gentleman was referring to associated with the liquor license laws, they are unable to have retail sales of alcohol within 300 feet of a church, a school, and that distance is measured from building to building. Staff did ask the caller to provide additional information, to provide his complaint in writing, so that staff could continue to work with the person, but we have not heard back from them. So, in conclusion, staff finds that the proposed use is compatible with the existing and planned land uses within the area and will not be a detriment to surrounding properties or persons. The proposed use will be on a parcel zoned for commercial uses and is surrounded by other parcels zoned for commercial or light industrial uses. And as is outlined in the staff report, parking will be monitored as future buildings are proposed and site plans are processed. And in the future, a mixed-use parking program may be considered, if needed, to demonstrate that parking is adequate for all the uses on the site. And so this concludes the presentation by staff. Staff is available to answer any questions you might have. We also have Mr. Sean O'Connor, who is representing the River of Life Evangelical Lutheran Church.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Birmingham?
Yeah, I have a question. Brett, one thing I noticed in one of these letters, it says the church is planning to use the suite for about 3 to 5 years. Considering that, and that they're not planning on making this their permanent home, and considering the fact that having a church in this type of business complex does limit the flexibility of the development of this complex, would it be reasonable to put in a stipulation that sometime in the next 3 to 5 years that they reapply for this special exception that way? Because there's no way the city can predict what the business environment's going to be 3 to 5 years from now and what their need for their property may be, as well as it's hard for the church to predict what their status will be in 3 to 5 years. So would that be a reasonable stipulation?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'd like to allow the applicant to respond to that concern. Staff was able to briefly discuss that with the applicant.
Okay.
Brett, just a quick follow-up. Are the two buildings owned by different people? Or is it all the same owner within, from the satellite view, do we know how far away that opposition came?
Chairman Peters, members of the commission, this aerial photo shows the property lines kind of in a dark blue, and the orange line shows the 300-foot radius there. So it does appear that all three of the buildings are maintained by the same property owner at this time. We don't know which parcel the gentleman that called was associated with. And so you can see on some of these parcels, a building still could be built on some of these lots, but there are a few that may run into a problem with this.
So it could be the case where someone owns the southeast corner. That person could be different than the person who owns the two existing buildings? Or do they develop them all at the same time? I'm just trying to work on, usually when you're leasing space, it's generally from the same person that would control the property rights of that. And so I'm just curious where this person falls into that equation.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this particular planned area development was approved in 2005. They moved relatively quickly with subdivision plats. I don't know the ownership, the current ownership data on all of the lots shown here. Some of them have been sold off, so I can't answer that right now.
Do we know if the Taste of Italy restaurant, or whatever the name of it is within that 300-foot radius, and does it serve alcoholic beverages?
Is it?
Mr. Chairman, if I could respond to that. I'm not exactly sure where the Taste of Italy is, but the fact is restaurant licenses, if they're operating under a restaurant license, are exempt from the 300-foot rule anyway. So they're not affected. It's retail sales of alcohol.
So basically a package store.
Right. What do they call it? Off-site? And as far as the ownership goes, the vacant lots on Estrella Parkway are owned by the same owner as the shopping center development, all three of them along Estrella Parkway. Brad, if you could point at them, please.
So this one, this one.
And the one further south, and the buildings are all owned by Tall Development, so that's the same owner. The one to the south is a separate ownership. And then the ones to the west across 150-something, 56, I believe those are all owned by others than Tall Development.
So Joe, just to clarify, the only kind of potential new business there that might be affected would be somebody who was selling retail liquor for off-site consumption.
Chairman Peters, Commissioner Short, that's generally true. The 300 feet applies to other types of licenses, but there's exemptions for restaurants, governmental license, hotels. There's a fourth category too, but temporary? Special event temporary. So those are the 4 that are exempt from the 300-foot rule. So mostly, the ones that you see most often are the restaurant licenses.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
ahead.
Just for clarification, stores such as Walgreens, CVS, small grocery stores, convenience stores that sell liquor, all those would not be able to develop in there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can a variance be granted if, you know, CVS goes in on the corner and wants to sell liquor? Can they come to us for a variance?
I don't have enough experience with the liquor license laws to tell you whether or not they would grant one.
Is that a state statute? That's not
Yes,
our...
it's a state statute.
I mean, I could argue the same way. If it was a liquor store going in here, I could say, well, now I can't put a church on that corner. Church is here first, so I would say we should look at their application.
Right. You want to hear from the applicant?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Sean O'Connor. My address is 905 East Cali Adobe Lane, Goodyear, Arizona.
Do you have any questions for the applicant, or did you want to say a few words and take questions, or?
I'll just go ahead and take questions.
Mr. Chairman, is the church planning to be there like in a 3 to 5 year range, or what is their plans?
Our plan for right now is to get into a site and start promoting our name for the next 3 to 5 years. The lease is for 3 years. The stipulation on the lease is we don't start making payments until we're approved to be in there. So we've already signed the lease, so we have rights to turn on the electricity and everything, but we're not paying rent. The landlord's working with us until we're able to get the occupancy permit, which is after all these proceedings. So it'd be 3 years from that occupancy permit issue would be when we'd start. And once we're promoting, if we're growing, we're out of there. We don't want to be in a little tight spot there if we're growing. If we're not growing, we have to reevaluate and reassess and maybe move into a school building or something else, because we just don't see us staying there for longer than 3 to 5 years. Either we're growing and we're moving out there, or we're not growing and we need to reassess again.
Well, in consideration of the city and the not being able to predict the state of business in 3 to 5 years from now, would it be a problem for the church to reapply for the exception in 3 to 5 years?
Only maybe financially. I mean, if it was just a review, that might be fine. But if, coming up with $2,000 every 3 to 5 years to reapply for a rezoning, all the plans and everything that might need to be produced and submitted and so on, might be a difficulty on us if we had to continue doing that in 3 to 5 years. We don't intend on having to do that, but if we had to, it might be a burden on us. Because obviously it means we're still small and very financially short of funds.
So your goal is to leave?
Our goal is to get in there, is to establish a church within the Goodyear area to service the members of our church. We get a lot of members from up in the northeast, Stan and Karen are from those areas around the Great Lakes and all, and they move here to Arizona for the weather, and they ask us to have churches out here, and Goodyear's become a prime location. We have members from Buckeye, Tonopah, Tolleson, and Avondale, and Goodyear, and Litchfield Park. So we're in a really good central area. If we're growing good enough, our plan is to establish a second church out in Buckeye. That would probably be in 10 years. But if you're familiar, we had a Lutheran church, a Wisconsin Synod Lutheran church out on Saraville and Van Buren, near the area where the previous presentation was. But those plans failed. They weren't run. The planning process wasn't done properly. We went too big, too fast, and that property we had to default on. And so the group that remained here wants to reestablish a new church and start slow and small, take the baby steps that should have been taken the first time around, and see if that works. And as far as the growth. of a church.
Any other questions? With your plans to grow, does that fall into the agreements that you came to with the parking arrangements? And have you, I saw that there was some studies or something that is done or an agreement based on the small size and not needing more spots, and so you don't anticipate that being a problem? Or
Parking should not be an issue, no. The core members all plan on parking in the back anyways to provide as much open parking in the front. We've been using the bingo parlor right next door for the past 2 months now, and I mean, we can see right now the only other business that's open on Sunday morning is the pet store, and it doesn't seem to be any dangerous traffic or any issues with finding parking spots. Most of our members, like I said, park off the side or are willing to park away from the doors and leave those open and we're going to establish right away with the pet store that these spots are devoted to the pet store, and we need to make sure nobody uses those spots and deters their business, because we want to be good neighbors, with our adjacent lot, adjacent suite mates there.
any other questions? Any other members of the public who wish to speak on this? All right, with that, I will close the hearing. And any commission comments? With that, I'll take a motion.
I move we approve case number 13-350-00001.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Case approved. Thank you. On to case 132200001, text amendment to various sections of the zoning ordinance pertaining to breweries, brew pubs, and microbreweries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. I had passed out a memo. Since you did receive the packet, we did make a few changes to the proposal and kind of highlighted those in the memo. And as part of my presentation, I'll be going over the most recent proposal that we have. So it would probably be good to follow along in the document with the revised 8/1913. What we're hoping to do tonight is look at a text amendment for the breweries, brew pubs, and microbreweries. And looking through our zoning ordinance, the main section that we had pertaining to microbreweries is a definition, and as you can see with the definition, it was for a facility that was limited to 25% of the building floor area. As well, the brewery could not sell beer for off-site consumption. It was for on-premise consumption only. And what we found through the years, potential microbrewers were interested in properties in Goodyear, but this definition did not allow what they would like to do. And we have been working with a potential business that would like to come into Goodyear. Again, this definition did pose an issue. It too many restrictions on their business model. And so we've been working with him on an ordinance to try to encourage this type of use while also making sure we're looking at compatibilities with adjacent land uses. And we're attempting to do that by creating 3 new definitions related to the land use. The current definition for bar microbrewery we would delete and create 3 new definitions. The first one is the brewery classification, and this is the information that is basically just taken from the staff report. But the brewery classification, it is intended to be more of the beer production and distribution type facility proposed in the I-2 General Industrial Zoning District. Production would be allowed up to 40,000 barrels per year.
Why was that number chosen?
That number was chosen, Mr. Chairman. The state has a liquor license, a Series 3, a domestic microbrewery, which allows production up to 40,000 barrels, which is a lot of beer to produce in 1 year. What we did was use that number as a cap, that for Goodyear, that would be about as much of a production facility as we'd like to see in the city.
Steve, isn't it correct? It can be allowed by special use, though, above?
Yes, Joe makes a good point. If for some reason they wanted to go further with that production facility, they would probably have to change licenses, but there was a provision that if they did want to stay in that spot, a special use approval through city council could be granted, and they could go beyond that.
If there is the case, they're, best microbrew ever, and they wanted to grow, and they wanted to do it here, we wouldn't turn them away. We'd consider, okay.
With the definition and the zoning district, we also are proposing development standards. And those are 1 through 6 there. The first one being 500 feet separation between residential, schools, or places of worship. The next classification we're proposing is the brew pub. This is the smaller type facility, a restaurant with a brewery component with it. It's intended here that the beer will be consumed mostly on site, but it would allow some retail sales for that. The brew pub is proposed in the C2 zoning district. No separations are proposed other than those required by any state liquor license requirements. The requirement that we have for the brew pub is that 40% of the revenues must come from the sale of food. So with this use, we are looking for it to be have a restaurant component and a brewery component. The next one is the microbrewery, and this would allow production up to 15,000 barrels by right in the C2 and I-1 light industrial zoning district. If the brewer was successful and they wanted to go beyond that 15,000 barrels at that location, like the brewery, they could apply for a special use and seek a higher production capacity. With the microbrewery, we're looking at a separation of 300 feet from any residential or school, nursery school, or place of worship. And again, we're looking at that to match the state requirements of 300 feet. Music, if music and entertainment were proposed with the microbrewery, what we are proposing is that it would follow the restaurant. Our zoning ordinance currently requires a restaurant if it wants music or entertainment, and that it has to get a special use through the city council, as well as being 500 feet from any residential. So what we're proposing is the microbrewery, if it did want music or entertainment, that it would have to be at least 500 feet from residential, and as well as get approval of a special use.
The special use is under 500 feet, I think. It reads funny.
Mr. Chairman, that brings up a good question. I'm going to
It reads funny, Steve, but I think the special use is within 500 feet. If it's over 500 feet, then you're okay. I like your way better. Yeah.
came to him.
Makes sense that within 500 feet, you wouldn't allow it unless you have a special use. That's where you're trying to protect.
Chairman, Commission members, we were able to clarify that. What we would like to do would be have the restaurant, brew pub, and microbrewery can have music and entertainment. If it's over 500 feet from residential, then they can have one entertainer, one venue, recorded music. If it was within 500 feet, that would trigger the special use. And that's how, there's a couple cleanup items in the ordinance that we will take care of with this to make sure that that's clear. But that is what we're proposing to do with this one. Delete the current definition for bar and microbrewery, create 3 new classifications, attach development standards to those 3 classifications, and assign the zoning districts in which they can locate. And the text amendment is, before you, is what we are proposing. Those are the changes we are proposing to the zoning ordinance. And this before you tonight is kind of a summary, everything that's in the staff report, hopefully summarize the changes that we're proposing. With that, Mr. Chairman, that is our proposal tonight. I'm available for any questions. We also have Jacob Hansen in the office, in the room tonight. Mr. Hansen is the gentleman we've been working with who's interested in a potential site in Goodyear. He can answer any questions from that side for you.
Do we have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, Steve, when staff looked at these regulations and developing these, I know some of the numbers obviously come because of the liquor license issue, but did staff research other cities and ordinances to see if we kind of align with everybody?
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, yes, we did look at most of the Valley cities, also looked at several across the country. Most of the Valley cities do not have a detailed ordinance. Most, if they do, most do have a floor area restriction. Another common one is the barrels, limiting the barrels. I've seen several different restrictions, 3,000, 6,000 barrels, 15,000 barrels. This ordinance would be a little more unique. I haven't seen anything like this one in the Valley yet, where we've taken more of a specific approach to it. Most have the cities that do have them kind of have them separated for either downtown areas or specific areas. So,
would you? Is it your opinion that our uniqueness would encourage the activity or discourage it? I guess that's more of a question for Mr. Hansen. You know, as I'm assuming an expert in the field, but I guess I'll save that question for you. Is comparative to other cities and their openness and our specificity and uniqueness, you know, what is your opinion on that and these ordinances?
Mr. Chairman and Commission members, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. The current regulation is very prohibitive in that it's one of the main things that breweries want to have the potential to do is to grow. Now, if they are limited to on-site consumption, that's as big a market as they can get. So however many people they can have in the seats is however much they can sell. Now, the equipment itself, I have a total right now for my equipment that I plan on buying is about $370,000. So you want to utilize it as much as you can. So with off-site sales, kegs, growlers out the door for people to even take them home and enjoy at home. You want to have that capability whenever you're making this kind of an investment in this equipment. And this equipment, I mean, its range, when you're talking about how many barrels, a barrel being 31 gallons. When you're talking, the equipment that I'm planning on buying, I'll be starting at, the estimate is about 1,200 barrels the first year. But this equipment can take me up to, depending on how often it's run, 20 to 30,000 barrels a year. It would be running very hard, but so you want to utilize it. In smaller, as the definition for smaller brew pubs, they might be buying smaller equipment. They'd be running it once a week, and they'd be utilizing it just for their restaurant alone. So in that sense, that would fit. The current definition would fit for a brew pub and maybe a brew pub only, but again, even a brew pub would want to be able to do growlers out the door.
Any other questions? Well, all right. Thank you for your comments, and thanks for working with the city. And,
Thank you.
with that, I will close the public hearing and take commission comments. No comments, then I will take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we recommend approval, case number 13-220-00001.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item number 9, staff communications.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to mention to you that we had our first public information meeting the BLM hosted their first public information meeting last night on the Sonoran Valley Parkway project, and it was fairly well attended. I think we had 34 citizens there who came to hear about the project. And we're holding the second one in Maricopa on Thursday night, in case anybody's interested. I believe we had notified you that the document was available. If you haven't read it, I don't blame you. It's only 572 pages long. And I can't even say I've read every single page yet myself. The second thing I wanted to do was poll the commission and see how delivery of the packets went. I know we had one problem. Otherwise, did you get them in, you feel like you got them in time?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're trying to get better every week instead of worse, and I think we're inching our way forward, so we'll probably stick with this program unless we get comments to the contrary. So, did you have anything? Oh, there's Community 11 in Estrella is a parcel that is located on the west side of Estrella Parkway as you enter into the development right past the Star Tower. It's submitted for a rezoning application, and there's a public citizen review meeting on August 29th in the evening at 6 p.m. at Star Point, if you're at all interested. The developers already hosted 3 public information meetings for the residents, but this will be the formal citizen review meeting if you're interested. If things track accordingly, we'll potentially see that at next month's commission meeting. So I think that's all we have.
Okay. Any questions? All right. With that, the meeting's adjourned.